At 4:37 a.m. on September 10th, a terrifying explosion ripped through the seabed. $425 million was hurled by the U.S. Navy into international waters a mere 20 nautical miles off the coast of Venezuela. This was no drill. This was the opening salvo of a warning that would send shivers down Venezuela's spine for centuries to come. A colossal U.S. Navy fleet was spearheading towards the Venezuelan coastline. Two guided missile destroyers of the U.S. Navy, the USS Jason Dunham and USS Gravely, are heading directly towards international waters south of Venezuela, just 230 miles off the coast of Caracas. At the same time, from Roosevelt Roads Air Base in Puerto Rico, a flight of F-35A Lightning IIs soared through thick clouds at a supersonic speed of Mach 1.6, heading southwest to establish a combat air patrol directly over international airspace near the Venezuelan coast. That's not all. The USS Jason Dunham had moved close enough to establish its battle position. In the Combat Information Center, red lights from the console illuminated the strained faces of the crew. Before the towering plume from the first impact had even begun to settle, a second blinding flash erupted from the Mech-41 vertical launch system. Another Tomahawk missile, its 990-pound warhead, a fresh promise of devastation, roared into the sky. It painted a new fiery scar across the heavens, a solitary hunter following the path its predecessor had blazed mere moments before. Skimming the sea at 547 miles per hour, it raced towards the coordinates still echoing with the first blast. The sea was sundered once more like a canvas slashed by a ruthless blade. This is a steel-cold message sent to the Caracas government after dangerous provocations on September 4-5. Two Venezuelan F-16s had daringly provoked U.S. forces conducting anti-drug smuggling operations. Fortunately for the Venezuelan pilots, the U.S. Navy exercised restraint that time. But not today. Like a predator lurking waiting for its prey to falter in the depths of the ocean, the destroyer USS Jason Dunham maintained its position on Venezuela's coast, its Aegis radar scanning the space like unblinking steel eyes. Nearby, the USS Gravely moved in formation, its Mech-41 launch system ready like an archer with a drawn bow awaiting orders. Both ships maintained a low speed, creating a static defensive area while awaiting further developments. Further to the east, several hundred miles away, the amphibious Ready Group, led by the USS Iwo Jima, had established a safe zone. From the deck, MV-22 Osprey helicopters took off circling like hunting specters, establishing a reconnaissance and surveillance network. The U.S. Navy's objective was a stark warning aimed at Caracas. Everything was ready. Just one grave action and the scenes of devastation from somewhere in Venezuela would flood the news channels. Nicolas Maduro would write the ending of today's chapter. Would he allow his people to go on living in peace, or would he turn the Caribbean Sea into a battlefield? In Caracas, in a stuffy bunker, President Maduro slammed his hand on the table, his face flushed urgently, convening the National Defense Council. The generals, despite their panic, hastily deployed elite units. T-72 main battle tanks rumbled along the coast of La Guaira, and a squadron of Su-30 MKV jets at Barquisimeto Air Base took off with a deafening roar ready for confrontation. More than 20 minutes after the second Tomahawk was launched, the radar signal on the USS Jason Dunham flashed like lightning in the Caribbean darkness, marking the beginning of an uncompromising standoff. The SPY-1 system had locked onto a group of Venezuelan aircraft streaking out from Barquisimeto Air Base, approximately 172 miles west of the coast. The Su-30 MKV's Russian Eagles, with a top speed of Mach 2.0 and a 17 600-pound weapons payload, including R-77 missiles with a 68-mile range, were testing international airspace. They flew low, hugging the coastal terrain to reduce their radar signature, their AL-31F engines roaring as they climbed to 30,000 feet, ready to demonstrate their might by circling the U.S. F-35A patrol area. But the U.S. Navy did not flinch. From a position just 345 miles from Puerto Rico, the F-35A flight was activated. They accelerated to Mach 1.6, hurtling into the disputed airspace. The F-35s did not charge straight in, but employed a first-look, first-shoot tactic. Their AN/APG-81 sensors scanned the sky, detecting the Su-30s from 115 miles away before they could even lock on. This was the advantage of sensor fusion technology. Data from radar, infrared, DAS, and electronic sensors were merged in real time, allowing the F-35s to see the entire battlefield without needing to activate their large radar, thus avoiding detection by the Su-30's early warning systems. The confrontation escalated as a Venezuelan Lupo-class frigate carrying 4 Exocet MM-40 Block 3 anti-ship missiles moved out from La Guaira port. This ship, under its dull gray paint, accelerated to 35 miles per hour and maintained its distance. Although it did not launch missiles, its appearance was a clear statement Venezuela was ready to confront. The Aegis system on the USS Dunham reacted immediately like a living steel shield. The SPY-1D radar detected and tracked every movement, missing no signal. The aerial confrontation simultaneously erupted. The Su-30 MKVs attempted to lock onto the F-35s by flying in arcs, deploying flares, and electronic jamming. However, the F-35s countered with electronic warfare, reducing the effectiveness of the Su-30's radar. One Su-30 attempted to launch an R-77 missile, but the F-35 evaded by suddenly accelerating, while its EOTS system locked back, ready to fire an AM-120D AMRAAM. No shots were fired, but the 10-minute pursuit turned the sky into a tense battle of wits between U.S. stealth technology and Russian maneuverability. From a position 287 miles from the Dominican Republic, the USS Iwo Jima reinforced its posture by deploying additional forces. The ship's deck vibrated as 6 MV-22 Osprey helicopters took off flying low to avoid Venezuelan radar, establishing a 23-mile surveillance perimeter around the main fleet. The standoff reached its peak when an Su-30 attempted to approach closer. But the Aegis system on the USS Gravely had anticipated this, activating SM-2 missiles to be ready for interception if Venezuela initiated hostile action. In the air, the F-35s used their stealth advantage to circle behind the Su-30s, ready to fire AM-9X Sidewinders if Venezuela made the first move. The Su-30s were forced to retreat, their radars jammed, and their performance significantly degraded. The U.S. Navy clearly held the upper hand with superior technology, turning every challenge into an opportunity for demonstration. But Caracas had not yet conceded. A new radar signal indicated more Venezuelan patrol boats approaching, pushing the standoff into a more dangerous threshold where just one mistake would be enough to turn deterrence into actual war. 5:47 a.m. The Caribbean sky was tinged with gray. From a position 230 miles off the Venezuelan coast, the USS Dunham and USS Gravely remained anchored like steel fortresses, their SPY-1 radars glowing as they scanned space with absolute precision. But the true power of the United States was hidden beneath the deep waters. At a depth of 600 feet, 34.5 miles from La Guaira port, the USS Newport News moved silently like a predator in the dark. Equipped with Mark 48 80-cap torpedoes, it had been tracking Venezuelan vessels from the start. Its sonar system emitted a mighty acoustic pulse strong enough to stun and temporarily disable the underwater sensors of a Venezuelan patrol boat that had just appeared on radar 28.7 miles away. There was no explosion or debris, but this invisible warning shook the entire enemy ship, causing panic among the crew. On the Venezuelan side, the atmosphere in the Caracas bunker was suffocating. All were wrinkled, gloomy faces like a soggy pile of bread left to soak in water. The highest alert level was issued. Along the coast of La Guaira, Guayquerí-class warships accelerated, ready to launch Exocet MM-40 missiles. And the air squadrons of F-16 Block 15 and Su-30 Mk2 fighter jets from Barquisimeto Air Base continued to deploy, carrying R-73 and R-77 missiles ready to confront the F-35s in the minutes to follow. On land, national television broadcast videos showing BTR-80 armored vehicles and Chinese-made VN-16 combat vehicles moving along the coast, coordinating with coastal defense artillery ready to repel any landing. The standoff continued to escalate when a Venezuelan patrol boat suddenly accelerated, wanting to test the limits of the U.S. fleet. The SPY-1 radar on the USS Dunham immediately locked onto the target, while an F-35A from 40,000 feet descended using its DAS sensors to detect heat from the ship's engines at a distance of 34.5 miles. Simultaneously, the USS Gravely activated its Aegis system, SM-2 missiles ready in their Mk-41 launch tubes, just awaiting a signal. Venezuela responded by deploying 2 more F-16s, flying low-dropping flares and electronic jamming. The climax arrived at 6:11 a.m. when the USS Newport News continued to track the Venezuelan patrol boat. This time, it emitted a higher frequency acoustic pulse, directly impacting the enemy ship's sonar system, completely disabling its underwater perception. Simultaneously, a Tomahawk missile was launched from another position, flying low and exploding on a coastal radar tower 2.3 miles from the coast. Black smoke billowed, proving that the U.S. could strike targets precisely without confrontation. Venezuela's radar was jammed and in chaos, but victory was not yet complete. Radar on the USS Iwo Jima detected 3 more Venezuelan patrol boats accelerating, carrying backup exocets. The Venezuelan Air Force deployed 2 more Su-30 Mk2s ready. Caracas broadcast new videos showing militias gathering along the coast armed ready to fight. Both sides were on the verge of opening fire. A small mistake from either side could turn deterrence into actual war where peace hung by a thread. Looking at the current tension, it's clear that the U.S. Navy, with its steadfast preparation and superior technology, has asserted its position as an unshakable force. From the destroyers, USS Dunham and USS Gravely with their sharp Aegis systems, to the stealthy F-35A Ghosts hovering in the sky and the ace up their sleeve, the USS Newport News silently beneath the ocean, each of their moves is a thunderous declaration. Conversely, Venezuela, under the direction of Nicolas Maduro, appears to be playing a game it cannot win. With their deployed Su-30 Mk2s and F-16s, their actions, though seemingly reckless, lack effectiveness. They are pushing themselves into a corner, misjudging their strength and stubbornly provoking a superpower. But the story doesn't end here. Let's ponder the potential next developments. Each scenario carries severe consequences, but it is clear that the U.S. Navy, with its meticulous preparation and next-generation technology, will always be in control. Suppose Maduro, in a fit of impulsiveness, orders his Su-30 Mk2 and F-16 squadrons to conduct a test airstrike targeting the F-35A patrol area. The Venezuelan aircraft would attempt to hug the terrain to avoid detection, but the F-35A, with its superior stealth technology and sensor fusion system, would detect them from a very long distance. The consequence: a brief pursuit ending with the F-35s photographing the Venezuelan planes from behind, forcing them to turn back with a wounded ego from being so easily outmaneuvered. Ultimately, Maduro would face a loss of credibility, and the U.S. Navy would affirm its superior air combat power. Too bad for Maduro. Did he really think a few Russian Eagles could match America's Lightning II? That's just a joke. In another development, if Venezuela's Guayquerí patrol boats in a reckless attempt try to launch Exocet MM-40 Block 3 missiles to provoke the U.S. fleet, but the Aegis systems on the USS Gravely and USS Dunham would lock onto them immediately. SM-6 interceptor missiles would be activated, ready to turn Venezuela's missiles into brilliant fireworks displays. This confrontation would only exacerbate Venezuela's weakness on the international stage. Ironically, Caracas is using toys from the 80s to challenge next-generation Aegis, a strategic blunder that makes them look like kids playing with water guns against a professional army. If Maduro mobilizes coastal defense forces, the USS Newport News, still quietly at 600 feet deep, would continue to be the trump card. This submarine could deploy electronic warfare measures and launch Tomahawk missiles at strategic coastal targets. This action would inflict significant damage without confrontation, demonstrating the U.S.'s ability to strike from unexpected places. This would be a cold warning, forcing Caracas to reconsider its decisions. It's ridiculous for Caracas to rely on Chinese tanks' inferior knockoffs to counter the U.S. 22nd MEU. That's just a laughingstock for those who follow closely. These predictions all clearly show one thing. The U.S. Navy, with its professionalism and superior technology, will always be in the dominant position. Although Venezuela remains stubbornly defiant with continuous mistakes, they are pushing itself into a potential crisis. Let's wait and see, because in this world, true power lies not in words but in the steel ships and superior technology of the U.S. Navy.